Hi guys, and welcome to another Daily Bread video. So this morning when I'm started out, we had these highs that we created on Friday, which is obviously our previous daily highs. And during the Asian session, we created this low, creating our buy side and sell side liquidity. And during the Asian session, we had a bit of a reaction off this sort of level here and had this push down. This was just engineering some more liquidity, enticing in early sellers. So we went over this a bit last week in the premium section. And we'll go back over this again in later on as we go to the end of the London session. But all we do is we start to engineer more liquidity, enticing early sellers in before we run that liquidity, taking out the previous daily high and the Asian session high, pushing up into our 5-minute POI just up the top here as we go into Frankfurt. So now Frankfurt has a bit of a reaction off this POI and pushes to the downside, creating some relatively equal lows before enticing more early sellers into the market, and London running them early sellers and tanking out Frankfurt. And then we get our big impulse to the downside. So as always, I like to see the market change in direction. So at the moment, we was impulsing to the upside, impulsing to the upside, still trickling to the downside. It's not till we have this last impulse to the upside before we start to get our impulses to the downside, like I'll look to enter the market. So once we've had this impulse to the downside, we start to trickle back up to our POI before we get our next sell-off. This is where I entered the market, looking to target the sell side after we've taken the buy side. We have that sort of big impulse to the downside, taking out these sort of lows, creating some more equal lows down here before trickling back up into a 5-minute POI, which would give us a 5-minute confirmation where I took my second sell from. From this level, we then impulse to the downside. Now, if we jump over to the DXY, which we like to use in correlation, how we actually looked at that stage is we came back down into this level. So we came down and we took out, let's jump onto the 5-minute just so we can have a quick look. We had this low that hadn't quite made it to the 5-minute before. We also had this low, which we came down and took out both these lows, tapping into that 5-minute, gave us our 1-minute entry before pushing to the upside, creating some equal lows, pulling back into a 5-minute. And that's why I use this to correlate and to give me my EU entry as well, just to have that little bit of extra confirmation. Now, what we did have, let's jump back down to the 1-minute. What we did have is that obviously the impulse of the downside, so we come to the end of my session at 10 o'clock. And all we started to do was just start to pull back. So I wasn't that bothered waiting for that sort of my New York session to start at 1 o'clock. We just started to have this pullback. Now, what we actually start to do is we start to create this trend line liquidity, just like this, or you can have it like this. Liquidity. And we also start to create that sort of buy side liquidity as we're just pushing up onto here, getting some sort of retail resistance. And then we have that sort of buy side, sell side liquidity. We've got trend line liquidity. We break out, we take that buy side liquidity. So exactly what we see here, where we break out and take that buy side liquidity, and then we're looking to target that sell side liquidity. So once we've done this, we've broken out and we start to target this sell side liquidity. Now, what have we got? We've got this Asian session low. We've induced and engineered some more liquidity in London and then started to push to the upside. Now, if you look at this whole picture of a whole, what it looks like is obviously we're having a push up. We pulled back. We've now pushed up, made a higher high, and we've had that pull back, got a reaction off here and pushed to the upside. So some smart money traders will be looking at this thinking, oh, we've bossed to the upside. So this is now our smart money trap, is where we know all we've done is engineered some more liquidity, and we're looking to take that sell side liquidity in the form of that Asian session low. The same thing that we did here. We had that higher engineered higher liquidity up at the upside, engineered some more liquidity in the form of the Asian session high, and then look to run that during when New York opens. So when our New York opens at 1 o'clock, we take a run for this sort of London liquidity. We take out the smart money trap traders and these early buyers, take out this Asian session low, grab all of that liquidity. What I was looking at is this sort of discount down at this higher rate, but we've had that sort of push up, and I wasn't really too interested in taking buys this afternoon because it was obviously the US bank holiday. And so I wasn't thinking there would be much liquidity in the market to give me any sort of big push up. So we've just have a bit of a reaction here and obviously grab that liquidity and push to the upside. And then we've pretty much just been moving sideways since. So what you need to always remember is obviously the market moves on liquidity. So we look to take one liquidity pool and then target the next liquidity pool. So the liquidity obviously we took this morning in the form of the previous daily highs, the Asian session highs, and then the buy side liquidity, and then we look to target the sell side liquidity in the form of session lows. Look, we can grab them and then look to the upside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete all of this off like this. And then we can start to mark out what we can look for tomorrow. So now what have we got? We have our New York high just here. We have our New York low just here, which if we don't break this before 10 o'clock will be our previous daily low. And this will be our previous daily high. Let's just turn them sessions off. So what am I looking for as we go into tomorrow? So now what I would like to see is where we are at the end of the Asian session. If we start to push to the upside here, we could look to obviously push up, grab some more liquidity, and then look to target to come down to our discount. Or in the Asian session, if we start to trickle down this way like this, I will be looking for this previous daily low to be run, maybe run these lows over here, target the discount, and then we can look for the upside. Currently at the moment, obviously, we're still in this bearish overall structure, but we have been leaving a lot of liquidity behind, which I would like to see be run. So at the moment, I always have that sort of buy side option and that sell side option. I will be looking, obviously, to see what liquidity is taken, and then we can just look to target the next liquidity. So if I'm going to be looking for buys and we're pushed down and take this previous daily low and give that discount, then we can look to target the liquidity to the upside. Or if we do push up and grab some liquidity from the upside, then we can look to target that liquidity from the downside, maybe even start to take down our previous weekly low. Now, following our weekly cycle, obviously on a Monday and Tuesday, we like to see a push in one direction and then look for that midweek reversal. So coming into Monday, we kind of just moved sideways today as we was ranging. Like I said, it was US bank holiday, so it's hard to get a clear direction of where we want to go for Tuesday. So always keep in mind that we do have them two options, and then just wait for it to take their liquidity, wait for our POYs, wait for that confirmation-based entry, and then look to target the other liquidity. Now, news-wise, going into tomorrow morning, we've got a lot of medium news. As we know, that the market's been reacting to a lot of medium news at the moment, as it's been kind of very sensitive on what sort of looking for these data releases to try and work out what it's going to do for its interest rate change, which isn't till next month. But now it's looking like the US aren't going to be sort of slowing down their interest rate hikes anytime soon, at least for the next two. It was meant to be the next one, but now they're saying there's going to be at least two more. So things like the data releases will sort of try give a clear indication of kind of what they're going to be doing. So any of these sort of medium news could have some sort of reaction on the market. So we have that sort of Euro PMI news tomorrow morning, and then tomorrow afternoon we also have the American PMI. Now, the biggest news movers that I'm looking for this week will be the FOMC meeting minutes on Wednesday evening. And then on Friday, we will have the PCE price index, which again will be another market mover. So they're just things to be keeping an eye on this week. We can wait for London to open and see where we are in the morning, maybe get some of this news that comes out around sort of 8:15 and 8:30 on London Open, see what it gives us, see what liquidity it sort of pushes towards. Maybe we'll just play around here now, during that sort of Asian session, and then once that sort of news breaks, it will push in one direction, grab the liquidity, and we can then look for an entry to target the next liquidity. I think that's pretty much it from me. I post these videos on a daily basis. Today I'm going to be, as promised, make it available for everybody to see. But if you would like to receive these sort of videos on a daily basis, as well as during my session times, I do post live updates, exactly what I'm looking at, what sort of POIs I'm looking at, when I'm entering the market, how I'm entering the market. There's also the course in there, amongst a host of other things. So if you do want to get involved with the premium section, just drop me a message, and I'll be able to hook you up with that. On Saturday, we do have our London meetup, just a social meetup. It's good to get to meet everyone that you speak to in the chat. And it's good to be around like-minded people, just see how they're getting on, see the sort of journeys that they've been on, and just have a chat, really. And just, it really is a big confident booster and gives you sort of that rocket up the arse, maybe, to take you to the next step, and sort of really gives you that buzz again just by meeting other people and listening to their stories and seeing how they're getting on. So we've got that on Saturday. If your name isn't down already and you would like to get involved, just drop me a message. There's still some spaces available, and that will be on Saturday in London near Old Street Station. So as always, if you've got any questions, drop me a message.